Hello, everyone. Welcome to Why Wellness. I'm Gina Rose, a certified personal trainer and fitness nutrition specialist, and I created this platform for so many of us to share our why. Oftentimes, we hear this buzzword question in the health and fitness industry, and I couldn't think of a better way than to compile our stories right here on my podcast, Why Wellness. We're here discussing inspiring, relatable, and motivating stories from health and fitness professionals across various platforms. Please subscribe, rate, and share my podcast. It would mean so much to me. I can't wait to share this next episode with you. Hey guys, welcome back to Why Wellness. So excited that we're finally here. I take forever to record my episodes, but I'm so thankful for all of your patience. And this next guest is totally worth the wait. He is the owner of the Lab in Fairfield, New Jersey. He's an author, presenter, consultant, TRX coach, specifically my TRX coach. He is the IDEA Health and Fitness 2017 Trainer of the Year. He is a former pro baseball player. He has a master's degree in exercise science, and he holds multiple certifications through ACE, ACSM, NASM, and SCA. And that's a long laundry list of stuff. Welcome, Michael Piercy.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So yeah, I'm hoping after you told them it's going to be worth the wait, we can deliver now. So now all the
I
pressure's on
know
me.
that's a lot of pressure, a lot of
Yes.
pressure. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Like I mentioned, my podcast is called Why Wellness. So it really is all about why health and fitness professionals got into the industry in the first place. So some of us, that can go all the way back to when we were younger. For some of us, it can be, later in life after we've made a business change or a career change, whatever the case is. It could be for personal reasons, whether it was health related. So I just want to dig in with you. When did you first enter into this industry? And was there a turning point in your life that made you choose this path?
Oh, wow. So let me think. This story, I've probably hashed this story out so much, and I usually deliver it in most of my courses to kind of set people up. But I started off in the industry at a very young age. I was probably about 15, 16 in New Jersey and around the world. I assume you get working papers, right? So I had some interest in fitness, and growing up, you have those creative parents, and like you're in a place like New Jersey, which is like Newark, Hillside, Irvington, and there's like if there, I'm one of those people that if there's 99 things to do to get in trouble, I'll find all 99 of them, or they'll find me.
Why am I not surprised?
Yes, no one's ever surprised. Well, some people are shocked, no, but maybe not. But when you look at it, so creative ways to try to find interest in a kid, and I got working papers at 15, and my mom said, well, I'll find him a fitness job. So she walked into a Bally's Total Fitness in Springfield, New Jersey, and said, can my son have a job he enjoys doing push-ups? And they said the only jobs we have are really trainer jobs. And she said she went home and she opened this big yellow book they used to send to your house before we all had Google, which was the phone book. And she started calling these certifying agencies, just saying, "Hey, can my son take your test? Um, he always is reading these fitness books, but I want to know if he's actually reading and not just looking at the exercise pictures." So most of them said no, he can't take the test because he has to have the high school diploma. And she came across one and she gave them the words that usually work in all the fitness when you want doors to open. I'll pay you more money if you let them take the test. And they said, and they
Oh,
said
bribery?
that's a joke. She said, well, what do we got to lose? We'll let them take the test. I ended up passing it, so I got my first certification at like 15, 16. Went off to Bally Soda Fitness, where I learned a lot of stuff in the fitness industry you should and should not do, and probably maybe my first week.
Mm.
And that kind of started I always had a love for fitness, just trying to get in shape, trying to stay. Fitness and baseball was kind of like my two things growing up. So I kind of that kind of gave me a platform. So when I later went off and got drafted to play baseball, I had the fitness background, and most athletes got like that. I got hurt story. I don't really have that. I got like decided I wanted to come home and pretty much work in fitness at the end of my career. So I came back home, and that was what I did ever since. So the love for fitness, and if you said it was a turning point, I don't know. The turning point would probably be my older brother getting his first like back in the day when your brother got his first like bench press set with the bench and weights, and the first thing they do is look at you as a little brother and say, "I'm gonna kill you if I catch you messing with my weight set."
Mm.
So, of course, I went off to mess with his weight set because that's what you do when you're the little brother. And then later on, my mom bought me what the Hulkamaniac workout set to avoid the fights in the house. It's like now you have a workout set, he has a workout set. So most people are too young to remember the Hulkamaniac workout set. That was like Hulk Hogan. He had the half rip t-shirt. He had like a pair of grippers, jump rope, body weight exercises, and you could learn exercise from a cassette tape, which now makes no sense, but it's all good. Somebody on a cassette tape told you how to do the exercise. So,
Okay, I
so
can dig it.
long-winded response, but
No, no, that's good. Usually they are. Any good story is like got a lot of detail to it, and I'm sure there's more to it. You mentioned when you started at Bally's, you learned things that you probably should and shouldn't do in the fitness industry. Did you understand that later in your fitness career, or did you understand it at the time in
you,
terms of like what you shouldn't do?
You know what's funny? I usually say it as a line, and it's funny when people listen to it. But at the
Mhm.
time, fitness was in a different place.
Mhm.
Completely as an instructor, as a presenter, as trying to coach people, you realize that fitness, it's still very young. Even though we feel like it's forever thing, we always changing. It's ever changing, like any big industry that's growing. And I think at the time you had different ways of looking at things. So it's like if you asked everybody, which day is chest day in the gym, everybody would yell out Monday, but you realize later on that, some of the exercises you were doing wasn't the most functional exercises. And then when I say some things you learned, what did you learn that you knew later on is how to take care of people, how, the coaching aspect of how it's not so much physical most of the time is really a psychological value that
Mhm.
becomes really one of the most valuable aspects of coaching people. And then just some of the way we viewed exercise back then. So if you had asked people back then what functional training meant, they would have thought it meant balancing on your head on stability balls and things like that. And then some magical black and yellow straps popped out of the sky, and now we all understand that we can use it to like own body weight movement, and it became like the center of like this whole functional training revolution, along with like the National Academy of Sports Medicine and people
Mhm.
that were coming up with research based stuff.
I think us as fitness professionals, we kind of understand that more. But for the people who maybe aren't in the fitness industry,
Hmm.
what is it? What is the difference between what fitness was then versus what it is now for those particular people? Because we might be more, abreast of what's going on. Obviously,
Hmm.
we both just came from the IDEA PTI conference,
Great
and
conference.
all weekend long we were surrounded by amazing people, presenters. Michael was obviously presenting there, and it was all fitness professionals obviously looking to grow and educate themselves and stay attuned to the ever changing industry. But what is it like for individuals who aren't in our industry? How are they viewing fitness now versus how they viewed it then?
I think it's a great question, and I guess my best answer would be I grew up in big box gyms, so that's my story starts in big box gyms. I'm a big fan, and I think I'm a big proponent of telling all young trainers they should start in big box gyms. It gives you a big a view, a huge vantage point of where you are as a fitness professional, what you like. But the best way to describe it, I think, with the way that people think nowadays is they're much more, today's consumer or fitness enthusiast is way more educated than they were in the past, and
Mm,
when I say that, in the past, when you wanted to get in shape, you showed up to the big box gym, which would essentially be like the fitness mall, and you had a little bit of everything. But I liken it more to like you think of like an aquarium or a fish store, right? And
mm,
you go in and you got 7 million tanks. And it's a reason for the 7 million tanks, right? Because you got all different fish in different tanks. So when you think about like the big box atmosphere, it's almost like you took all those fish and you just poured them into one tank.
mm.
And what'll start happening after a while, if that happens, is you start coming back, and then some fish aren't there anymore, and then some fish aren't there anymore, and then you notice some fish are getting bigger,
Ah,
and some fish are getting bigger, and you have less and less of the other fish, and the other fish continue to get bigger. So when you look at that, it's like the best way to sum that up is like people understand more that now if I want to just spin, there's a Soul Cycle, or there's a Cycle Bar, or there's some place that is doing great work that if I just want to box, you got a Bash Boxing, you got Glove Works, you got some cool places that I could just go box, and that's what I really like to do. Or if I want to go functionally train or train like an athlete, I can go to a place like the lab, or I'll go to somewhere else. And that's the difference. And not the only difference, but people realize that if I really love to do something, I can find a place to do that. I don't have to go and expect this one place and pay this membership every month and then
Mhm.
hope that they can fit my needs,
Mhm.
which is a much different thing. And then the next thing is people are they have so much more information now than they've ever had at any time in history, right? To the point where I usually would tell people, like, if somebody shows up at your door, like it was in the past, you really worried about walk by traffic, right?
Mhm.
For or drive by traffic. I wanted to be on a main street so somebody would see my place, right? And nowadays, when somebody shows up at the door, they usually know everything about you already. They know what you do, they know what your programs look like, they know what, people want more convenience. So they
Mhm.
they have way more information than they need to judge what they want from you. So when they show up at the door, it's a question of um, whether you reinforce that trust
Mhm.
or you ruin it.
Well, that can be a catch-22, right? If they
Hmm.
have so much information, right? Because it's overwhelming to the
Hmm.
consumer as well. So they are educated, they might be over, educated in terms of receiving information that could be right or that could be wrong. And so how do you think they should manage what information they're taking in and entrusting? Is it really up to, whomever they're putting their trust in as a trainer or a gym, or you know because you can go online now obviously and do whatever in terms of getting programs where you don't even have to go anywhere these days. I
Hmm.
mean, and we have the Peloton now, like all of this digital kind of world is seeking slipping in. And I think that there's still a lot of confusion about what is the best way to approach, you know the industry and how they are going to get results.
I think it's a great question. It's with the information, I do agree. It, I get to the point sometimes I say if I was on the other side of the table, I wouldn't really know how I would pick who I would train with.
Mhm.
It's a tough deal. It depends on what it is that I think that coaching is something that will never go away or go out of style.
Mhm.
When I look at what I do on a regular basis and you work with athletes, an athlete will never go and say, I'm going to use this app instead of,
Right.
having this person because there is always a component, a motivational component of someone driving you harder than you can drive yourself.
Mhm.
Great coaches, they do what? They see things in you that not even you see,
Mhm.
and the job is to get you to believe that you can be the best you, so when you look at it, I think that with it's absolutely correct. You can, if you, and I think I tried to hit on this in a couple of presentations where, and even when you're teaching courses, it's that anybody can get workouts. And I think that in the past, that's a change from the past. It was like, hey, but not so much because you always had a DVD. You always had like, it's just that we have way more convenience to where you look at it. I can find any hit workout I want to hit. So I can
Mhm.
throw hit speed agility workout, tap on my phone, and now I
Mhm.
can watch it. The question is, will I do it? And will
Right.
I do it in a way that provides me the success or,
Mhm.
the result that I'm looking for? But at the end of the day, I think that nowadays, the real changeover is you have to provide more value, and there
Okay.
has to be value in the coaching. And essentially, that may or may not answer the question, but that's really
Yeah,
kind of where
no,
I'm going.
it definitely does. We'll kind of steer away from that in just a second, but in terms of so someone who is looking for a personal trainer, let's say, like
Hmm.
what is something that they should really be looking for? Like what defines a great coach in your opinion, a
Wow.
great trainer? I mean, everyone's style is different. Like obviously we are around so many different fitness professionals who specialize in certain areas, and everyone has a specialty of something. So like you go to that person, or you for this, you go to you for sports training, you go to this person for yoga, whatever. Like what defines a great coach or personal trainer for someone who is looking to get results? What should they look for in that person?
Well, I think when you look at that,
Is it experience? Is it their certificate that they got? Because I mean, is it
no.
their education? Is it, their personality?
You
Is
know,
it what
I
is it?
think I don't know if it's any. It can be any or none of those things. That's
Mhm.
it's a tough. It's not a tough answer to give. It's just tough for a person to listen to because
Right.
it's not clear cut and dry, right?
Right.
So when I think about, and this is another topic I could go for a long time on, right? So it's the personal trainer versus coach thing, right? But I've
Mm.
never looked. I'm not a big fan of that competition because I think that to take something like a personal trainer and now I think becoming a great coach is the evolution of the personal trainer. but your cert said personal trainer on, it, and you were proud to get that.
Mm,
It's just that I think that within the scope and realm of us moving into this industry and you being moved in the different directions that you might be pulled in by what you see from social media to, the really smart people that you see when you stand up to, I think that there is a miss on understanding that the word personal always comes into play, right?
mhm,
And that if you look at great coaches, right? For me, I always like to study great coaches. People like John Wooden, Jimmy Valvano, and those great people that, people say, hey, why are you a Dallas Cowboys fan and you lived in New Jersey? Because I was a small kid and used to watch Tom Landry come out in this full suit and these huge men that are way bigger than him, and they moved like clockwork according to what he told them to do. And you think of all the work and everything that he put in. So I just was mesmerized by the fact that, this person had this much control over 50, or, you know, drive of 50 human beings, right? So when I think of coaching, I think it's an evolution that you arrive at, right? So for a person looking for a great coach, you have to look at a person. When I was coming into fitness or trying to grow in the industry, I looked for somebody who had similarities to my background, right? I was looking for somebody who was a former athlete who had moved into fitness and became a successful fitness pro, right?
mhm,
Opened a business, done things like that, and I came across Todd Durkin, and at that point, I found his mastermind and mentorship, and through that, I found another coach who was Larry Indiviglia, and I think that why do I bring up Larry? I think that Larry was the best coach in fitness. I do still. Why? Not because he told me so much things, but he asked me the right questions that forced me to explore within myself what those answers were. And I think that exercise is one thing.
mhm,
There's always going to be a point with a client or an athlete or things like that where you can have the turning point you talked about earlier,
mhm.
right? And that's what coaches do. They get you to the turning point. But
Yep.
at the end, it's them to get you to jump in
Mhm,
that situation. So if I was looking for a coach, I look for somebody who had qualities that, I could have some rapport with, and a person that you got to know and like and trust.
right.
You know what I mean? Without that, you're not gonna have it. I got to know you,
Yep. Mhm.
understand who you are and who you are,
Yeah.
who you've been, where you've been, what your journey is,
Yep.
right? Like the person. No, no, you're not gonna always like them,
Mhm.
but
Exactly.
genuinely, that everything they're doing, they do because they're driving you to the next level. And then I have to trust your plan to get me to where I want to go.
Love it.
And it takes a little while for you to get to that, right? And that's not search, that's not things like that. Like, hey, listen, I love when people bring up different things because that validates that you work for it.
Mhm.
But at the end, it does make me a better coach than somebody else,
Right.
you
I
know?
love that word. It's something actually I've been more accustomed to in terms of that distinction between personal trainer and coach. It's
Yeah.
just it's something that recently, having been around so many of my mentors, like people like you, and just learning what that difference is and how you can make a difference just by kind of, transforming the way you approach what it is that you do with people and getting them to implement change,
Yeah.
obviously, and help them through something, getting them to one point to the other through different techniques. So,
Yeah, I really, and not to stop you in
mm.
full. I know you were getting ready to pivot, but I saw the pivot.
I was.
The, th- the thing about it is, you don't just magically wake up and you're a coach.
Right.
And I think I see a lot of that now. You don't just magically wake up. If you look up stories like John Wooden, one of the most, I'd say, the thing that most enamored me about reading his research is he won all of these like national championships, right?
Hmm.
And every year they would come in, and the first practice would be, "This is how you tie your shoes.
Mm.
This is how you tie your shoes." So if I'm a sophomore or junior, every year I'm coming in and we're doing, "This is how you tie your shoes and put on your socks properly." That's the first practice, you know? But that's what it is, right? It's the
Yeah.
basics. It takes
Yeah.
meticulous work. And what is you know, when you think of that's the workout portion, right? Anybody could put together a workout.
Hmm.
But I could just hand you 5 exercises and say, Gina, do these,
Hmm.
and you're gonna be fine.
The
But
sequencing of it, it matters. There's reason, rhyme and reason behind everything that
yeah,
or
and it's
you
the
should it
journey.
should be. Yeah.
It's taking you on the journey from point A to where the
Mhm.
destination
Mhm.
is, and that's
And coaching, I
coaching.
think a lot of people when they hear the word coach, they automatically think of sports, right?
Hmm.
But it's not just that. It's not just sports. I mean, you can have a nutrition coach, you can have a mindset coach. I mean, we're
Hmm.
in this, meditation sort of, mindful living state as well, and that's ever evolving. So, I think, people should be aware of the fact that it's a coach isn't just someone who has a team of people. It can be very intimate, it can be very personal depending on what that individual's goals are.
Hmm.
And you mentioned something too. It was one of my questions I wanted to ask you, and I think you kind of alluded to a couple of
Nice.
them, but one of them was who has been your biggest influence? And it might not be in the fitness industry, but personally or professionally, just along your career. If it's more than one person, that's fine. But who do you see as someone who's been your biggest influence?
My biggest influence will always be my father, you know.
Okay.
And my pops passed, and we buried him in November. But I mean, I've had great coaches and great people, but I think that there's a quote they say, my dad didn't tell me how you should live. He
He
let me
should.
watch him do it,
Yeah.
and that's kind of really what it was, as and I kind of alluded to this. I won a couple years in the speech. It's like, as it was the work ethic, and then people usually laugh when I told this story about, my mom was like, well, the day I got drafted, she's like, well, she didn't know nothing about baseball or anything else, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna get drafted today, and she's like, after you get drafted, make sure after you guys get finished drafting, make sure you take out the garbage, because she's knows nothing about what's going on, right? So, but that was kind of like a metaphor for everything that we did in my house. Like, you always take out the garbage,
Mm.
So that's just really what I learned from him, right? So I remember having chicken pox as a kid, right? And feel like I'm on my deathbed,
Mm.
and he's like, "Well, still gotta take out the garbage." you know,
Yeah.
and being sick, food
Right.
poisoning, stomach aches, you still got to take out the garbage. And in life, that was really what I learned, right? No matter
Mhm.
what's happening, you got to still take out the garbage, because if the garbage is sitting, it starts to stink, it starts to
Mm.
pack up, it's all over the place, and you didn't take care of it. So
Mm.
when I look at it, every day I go in, my dad never missed a day of work as a truck driver. He drove long haul trucks and, kind of never missed a day. So for me, every day it's like you go in and you try to do the best job you can as possible. And then when things happen that you're not so happy with, you got to take out the garbage. Every day you got to go to work.
Mm.
Every day you got to take care of the good stuff and the bad stuff and try to do
Mm.
the best you can for people. And that's kind of really what I try to do. And that's really been my biggest influence. Um,
It's amazing.
in fitness, there's a lot,
Yeah.
there's way too many to name, but there's a lot of people who had, a lot of influence. And I think that you should have a lot of people when you look at it. And I think
Mhm.
that when the student is ready for every level that you're going to go up, there's going to be somebody that appears to help you get to that level.
Yeah.
And then that's the quote, right? When the student's ready, the coach will appear, or the teacher will appear. And I think that I've had that happen a lot for me, and it's these lessons that life will, lean on you to learn. And when you learn, you level up. Somebody will be there to help you get to the next spot, no matter how hard it is. So I've had a lot, and
Yeah.
influences, and hopefully that makes some sense. But
Yeah. I'm curious. Are you familiar with imposter syndrome?
yes, I am.
So how okay, so I'm wondering if you've ever experienced that yourself or um you, well, let me just ask you that. Have you experienced it? Have you experienced imposter syndrome where it's like, how am I worthy of, or am I ready for this next level, or am I someone who is um, good enough at what I do to be able to take these people through?
Yeah.
Even with the background, the training, etc. Like, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I think we all do.
Okay.
I mean, when I look at that, I think that nowadays we're at a point where we are we're trying to get more comfortable with speaking about a lot of things that in the past it was like, oh, well, no, I don't experience any of that stuff.
Hmm.
I think that in some stages, you're gonna always, if you really I think that people, when you love your craft, that's part of you loving it, is that
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you want to be great at it. And I
Right.
think we all experience some things of that. And I can allude to baseball has been a huge influence with that.
Okay.
So for me, one thing about baseball is if you're 30%, you're gonna go to Hall of Fame. So the greatest hitters only get a hit 30% of the time. The rest of the time they're just making outs. And we, if I could go back to my dad, one of the lessons that you say, hey, what was the greatest influence? The greatest influence he ever gave me was you stay on the line. Never go off the line. And what the line means is that
Mm,
when people tell you how great you are, don't believe them. When people tell you how bad you are, don't believe them.
mm,
You gotta stay working every single day, and it's the work that helps you conquer,
yeah.
the syndrome of those things. And that's really what it is. You know that you deserve to be successful because of the work you put in. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things I'll tell my young athletes
Mhm.
that when they go off and they finish off-season training, like the they don't deserve to beat you. You in here every day. And a lot of
Mhm.
times I get emotional about it because it's just true. They don't deserve to beat you. You want to work so hard that when you look across, they don't deserve to beat me because they weren't up at 4 in the morning doing those
Yeah.
runs. They weren't up, in the middle of the night doing that weight work. They weren't up doing those speed agility drills. They weren't up and, doing these
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
So, and that's it. And that's how you conquer that. But I think we're all gonna always have a little bit of that. And
That's good to know because I know I've been, I experience it too as, a young entrepreneur, I guess, and just feeling as though maybe I'm not ready to be at a certain level, even though I have this training, I'm doing the things, I'm going through the motions. I
mhm.
feel as though I'm putting in all of the work, and just kind of grinding it out. But then there'll be times when I'm like, well, am I even worthy of telling these people? Because who am I, right? So I think it's good to know that even at every level or stage in our career, we kind of all deal with that. It's just maybe part of being human, right? And just
Yeah, and I think that is, like I said, I could go all day with just things. If I, not to make it all about that, but
hmm.
when my dad wasn't a talker like me, like he
Mhm.
didn't even understand where that came from. He's like, where does that even come from? But when he said stuff, it was felt. And then one of the
Yeah.
great lines that you can deal with that is stay humble or be humbled,
Mm.
you know? And you rather not have the latter one, right? The second one go. So it's
Mhm.
like, I think that's part of being humble is that I don't think you'll ever get to. I know I won't. It's like somebody walks in and says, "Hey, you're popular," and I'll say, "Am I?" You know, but it also popular doesn't always mean good, and that's
Exactly.
just in this.
Man, just say that again. Say that
Well,
again.
it's the truth.
It's
Popular
true.
doesn't always mean good,
Mm.
and it can't always mean good for you
Mm.
because once again, if you decide to stay on the line. Whenever
Yeah.
people tell you how great you are, don't believe them too
Yeah.
much. And then another great one is sometimes your best critics are right.
Mm. Mhm.
So maybe sometimes if somebody says, "Hey, you need to work on this," and
Yeah.
it's popular to say, "Well, they're a hater." Yeah, there's
Yeah.
gonna be haters in life and stuff like that. But sometimes it's just like we just left PTI. I got a notebook full of stuff that I didn't think that I did great that I looked at and I said, "Man, what?"
Yeah.
So I go back and I had a friend of mine who also a great mentor of mine, and he said, "How'd it go?" Said I'm gonna go back to the drawing board a little bit and work on a couple of things. But
Mm.
so that's the art.
Mhm.
That's the art, I think. That's the
That's
art when
that's
it
a
comes.
journey.
Yeah.
It's why you love what you do, right? You keep getting after it and finding ways to improve and get better and, be real. Be real about it. So,
It's the only way to be, right?
yeah, 100%.
I love it.
Um, so what do you think has been one of the toughest parts of this industry? If you can think about any mistake that you made or
Mm.
obstacle that you've had to overcome, whether it's with opening your own business, whether it was with your own fitness, whatever it may be, can you think of a mistake that or something that maybe you regret or an obstacle, whatever it is? What is that like for you?
Oh, I think it's a lot. If you think of from a business standpoint, you're always going to encounter as
Mm-hmm.
a business owner, you always encounter some big mistakes. So it's like you're in the land of Under Armour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see a lot of mistakes. Huge company, but you see a lot of mistakes, and I'm sure they'd be very open and saying a lot of big mistakes. So, what's some big mistakes that I have been guilty of not getting the sleep that I want to get. So, some big mistakes that I've made is thinking that there's the mentality that there's the I should work all night and not sleep type of thing. So, I've tried
Mm-hmm.
to do better to become better at those things. So, if I said the mistakes I've made is I've sacrificed a lot from a health standpoint to do a lot of things. And
Mm-hmm.
that you can run the machine and you run the machine hard and then your energy suffers to do some of the work. But I
Right.
think as a as a society right now, and especially a fitness society,
Mhm.
we want to be busy
Yeah.
and everybody wants to be doing everything.
Yeah.
And the
It's
biggest
hard to say no to all of the things,
that's
right?
and that was going to be that I was moving towards that to say
Yeah.
that's the biggest mistake is I've had things that I should say no to
Mhm.
that you say yes because you just want to keep doing
Let's
things.
just remind everyone that you're literally here out of PTI on your way back to Fairfield, New Jersey. So this is definitely something he could have said no to, but he didn't because he's awesome. Hopefully you don't
Thank
regret
you. No, I do
it.
not regret it because
But no, there's so many different, opportunities that you don't want to miss out on, or that you want to make an impact on, or that you
hmm
want to be there to, help somebody, whatever the case is, that it's sometimes really hard to say no. So,
yeah,
um,
and you there's a tendency we could go back to that popular word, right?
mm-hmm,
It's a tendency to want to do everything because you want everybody to like you.
mm,
And especially in certain circumstances because as you grow and I don't know if I the right person to say all of these things, but it's like as you start to grow, right, more opportunities start to come.
mm,
And then if you're gifted, which you are at doing these things, right, the gift takes a lot of energy to use it.
mm-hmm,
That's the way
mm-hmm,
kind of God makes it, right?
yeah,
So the more you use it, the more tired you become.
mm-hmm,
So it forces you to like have to pick and choose better and do
mm-hmm.
things. So I always love this Steve Jobs quote, and I'm like a reading person, so you
Yeah,
get to
no,
always
that's
drop.
good.
So I always love this Steve Jobs quote where he says, he's not so proud of he's not completely the most proud of the things that they have made. He's more proud of the things that they haven't done, you know.
Mm,
So, because that was the tough part is,
yeah,
why would I do? He wanted to make things, and I kind of see the parallel where it's like I just want to do great work. So you say
mm-hmm,
why, straight from PTI, why do I think I should be on the podcast in Maryland? Because I think it's great work.
yeah,
So it's like that's why you get a chance to do great things,
yeah.
and can you pass on something that maybe, hey, maybe it was like, yeah, I could have did, 40 jumping jacks in the parking lot, but no, I'm joking. Um,
Well, speaking of all of that, so, so many opportunities. How have you been able to manage now that you've understood the fact that maybe you don't say no as often or you don't get enough sleep? How have you been able to balance your work life
um,
from
hmm,
learning from those mistakes now? I mean, what has changed in terms of how you manage that?
what's
So let's
changed?
hold you accountable
Yeah,
too.
it's ever, what's funny? It's ever developing. Like if I
Okay.
sat up here and I told you I was an expert at it, I would be a flat out liar.
Mhm.
So it's tough sometimes, and I'm still learning. There's some people, I guess, they have it down to a science, and some, people, when I look at it, I say, how have I been able to um, make some progress with that is sharing some of the load. So I am a person who likes to do things, and I think that a lot of people, when you do this, I will do stuff myself if some person, and the tendency is to want to do everything because
Mhm.
it's easier if I
Mhm.
don't tell you how to do it and I just go do it.
Right.
But that doesn't lead to you, it's a development for everybody, and then I continue to do everything. So if I realize that later on that I need help, none of us can do it alone. Unfortunately, that's it. So it's tough to be able to share your
Mhm.
vision and be able to pull people in. So it's the reason why the lab's not called Mikey's Fitness because I want for at some point, it's a reason why Under Armour's not called Kevin Plankland,
Mhm.
because at some point you want people to come into that vision, right? And then find out where they play into it. And maybe that vision can expand and create a branch that, takes them to their dreams and goals.
Mhm.
And you got the perfect representation of it across over there. So it's
Mhm.
like, all right, you have a whole bunch of people pursuing their dreams, but they
Mhm.
got that symbol on them and it
Mhm.
represents something different to every person, right?
Right.
So for me, to balance it all is to try to get a little bit of help and then to realize that now, if I do something, it needs to fit into what my vision is for where I'm trying to go,
Mhm.
and then I don't want to just do something because it's like, hey, they want me to do it and it's a great brand or it's a great
Mhm.
show or stuff like that. Um, I think that years before, like if we just use PTI as a reference or some other shows, I think that, the need to present in front of people and stuff like that's a popular thing, right? Because we like to be up in front of people and it can be an egocentric thing.
Mhm.
Um, but it's, are you saying anything
Mhm.
that, you know,
Of value
of
or
value
making an
to
impact.
people that are
Mhm.
grinding every day that want success? It's like how many nuggets did I get from PTI from, and that's the way I like to think of it now. At
Mhm.
what point I said this to a bunch of people this morning. I said at some point if I had nothing to say, then I just wouldn't present anymore,
Mhm.
because when people come in, the way I was a participant at one point at a
Mhm.
show,
Mhm.
not even thinking of presenting.
Mhm.
And I did a Viper challenge, and I'll never forget it because I had a friend who was in there, and what she said is, "You should do the Viper." They started doing a Viper challenge at the end for like a medal at the end. And I wasn't gonna do it. She's like, "You should do it. You're gonna kill that." And I'm like, I jumped into it and I ended up winning it. It changed the way I viewed everything.
Mhm.
And then I started looking at it and saying, all right, and got more involved in it. And then started thinking, oh, well, I would like to do a little bit more at the shows. And then I realized that I have some things that people want to know about. And so every time I go in to present, and it's a little long-winded, but every time I go in to present, I try to look at it from the eyes of the participant. Are they
Mhm.
getting anything that they could take away? So when I view back to the question of how do you manage that, is the saying no portion is saying no to things that may be nice for my ego, but
Mhm.
might not necessarily draw me closer to the end goal of where I'm trying to go.
Okay.
So now it's to be more measured with projects and then try to manage the daily life of
Yeah.
chaos that comes.
I want to talk about that because that
Uh-oh.
was another question. So you
Uh-oh.
said something about your vision, right? And where you want to go. One of my questions before you even talked about that is what is your plan? Where do you see yourself in like 10 years? I know that's like a very cliche like interview
Uh,
question, but it's true because as, this is something that my family has said to me too. When you're in the fitness industry, obviously like you're on this other level of energy. Like
mm-hmm.
you're at the top of like the charts when it comes to just being on, getting other people motivated, pushing your body, pushing your mental health. And I get questions in my family about like, okay, so when you're 60, 70, like what do you plan on doing, Gina? Like what are you going to keep doing this? And I mean, I think that there's different paths and levels that we can go in the industry, like presenting, becoming an educator, that don't require as much physical demand. So for you, I know that you own obviously a brick and mortar, and there's a difference between being a business owner, I think, and being self-employed. So
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, I'm self-employed. I don't employ other people.
Mm-hmm.
I am just a proprietor, so it's just me. If I make money, I have to be there. Whereas, if a business is making money, the owner doesn't necessarily have to be there. The business generates revenue for you. So
Hopefully.
hopefully, yeah, that's the goal. So yeah, what's in your vision then?
What's in my vision? I guess it'd be two-part. It'd be personal and, the lab is always separate for me. I want it to be one of the best performance facilities that you could go to in the world, and I
Hmm.
want to keep growing that. Um, and it's a solo from a solo perspective, it's owned by me 100%, and it's my own. It's all of my life built into it.
Hmm.
So that's what I want it to be, but I also want it to be a place of opportunity, not just for the athletes that come in, but for the trainers that work there. I always wanted it to be a best of the best people that come in, that when you come to the door, you never have to question whether they have everything that they have, all those background certs or whatever it is and things like
Hmm.
that. But also, growing up in a big box, it was a different type of atmosphere. It wasn't an atmosphere that provided opportunities. So any opportunity that I got, which was TRX, so in my first Under Armour opportunity, because actually I was with Combine 360 before I was with TRX, right?
Hmm.
So, but I went out to pursue those opportunities, but it wasn't viewed in a positive light. It was viewed in the fact that those companies were looking to take me away. And
Mm.
I want people that came in, the Ginas of the world, to come in and say, hey, this is great. I can grow here. And then they go off to write blogs. They go off to do books. They go off to, I don't know, fitness model. They go off
Mhm.
to do whatever they do. But when they come, this is home for me,
Mhm.
and that's something you can go all over. People say, oh, you love Jersey so much. Yeah, I love Jersey because I can go all around the world, which I've been, right?
Mhm.
There's no place like going to the corner store at my from my block,
Mhm.
because that's just home,
Yep.
no matter what it's like. So when I look at that personally, it's to grow that and to continue to create, and if it grows into two, three, four, or just one facility that people came from far and wide because they knew that that's the place where you know, they could accomplish, their dreams, goals, stuff like that. That's cool. For me, I'm at the point in my, fitness career where I want to do meaningful work.
Mhm.
So that means probably more writing, there'll be more
Mhm.
blogging, obviously, maybe social media content, but also just, writing books and, trying to, I would love to do some programs that help young trainers. So next week I'll be in ACSM, which is a great show. I did a keynote at Southeast Fitness Expo and I loved it because it was just young fitness professionals coming to this industry that will shape it. Like it's great to be that guy and I love it, but if somebody came up, one of the best things I got from the whole show, and I have friends there, and it's always like they'll say the same thing you said to me on the way in, and they'll be like, it is funny, right? So I'll laugh. But the best comment that somebody gave me, and it's not that the other one, so I love everybody that came up and said nice things, but this one guy came up to me, and I remember a few years ago I had written a book, the Men's Health 30-minute Shred, and he won the book in one of the classes, and he came up to me, and I hadn't seen him in since then, and he said, "Oh," he was like, "I didn't want to interrupt. I'm still using that book to this day. I'm still using that book." And this is going to be a little long-winded because I'm going to tie it into something. So last week I didn't have to teach a course, so it's one of the few weekends that I didn't have to do anything. So
Mhm.
they had this exhibit at Keene University where I went to school. It's called Da Vinci Inventions,
Mhm.
and I'm obsessed with Da Vinci
Okay.
because he's an absolute genius. But if you look up his story, he just was like that. He just went into this and he starts doing this, and he was a
Mhm.
painter. He was just multifaceted. But he kept these notebooks, meticulous notebooks that people later on look at, and I think they said Bill Gates is the only private owner of one, and they call them the codex because they just basically started to recreate these inventions that he made from the notebooks. So it's just a cool thing to have something, pieces of work that you put together that last beyond the time that you're here.
Mhm.
And so that's cool. So if we think of like an Under Armour or a big company like that, it's like it'll live on past the time that you were here.
Mhm.
So people will come, people will go, but a lot of people's dreams, goals, lives are built on these places. So that's my overall goal in 10 years to put out more work that, presenting at shows is great, but once you
Right.
get off stage,
Mhm. You're not there anymore. Mhm.
no, and then you may have some notes
Mhm.
from whatever it is, but if you have, materials, books, things like that people
Mhm.
can get their hands on,
Yeah.
you can help, just with the philosophies that you had
Mhm.
help shape,
Yeah.
what's going to come. So I love
Mhm.
this industry and I want to see it become better, and it's always
Yeah.
been my goal to try to help raise the level of it.
Leave something behind.
Leave something
Mhm.
behind that,
Yeah.
well, it's the truth.
No,
So,
it's true. It's
well,
it's a great vision, a great goal to
well,
have.
thank
I
you.
mean, I think
I
it
try.
maybe the one of the ultimate goals is to, make an impact that will last longer than our years, which is awesome. So, what is advice that you can give to fitness professionals who are either just starting out or maybe further along kind of in their careers about starting their own business?
Another great question.
Mhm. What's some great advice?
The
What
great
is mhm.
advice would be I would tell them not to at the outset.
Not to do what?
Not to start a business at the outset.
Okay.
I think that I'm a big proponent, and I've said this, so it's shocking to people. You need to know whether that's really what you want to do. And it's
Mhm.
not from a negative perspective. It's the fact that you alluded to it earlier. And I gave a presentation which was I haven't given since I first started. My first presentation in the fitness industry was a 3-hour presentation called Employer to Entrepreneur, right? And it's so different now than it was when I gave it because I was a new business owner who just opened a business. Now I've been in business 7 years. Um, but I think that because of say maybe it's social media, maybe it's because of things see, maybe it's because the quotes people read all the time, is that they believe that that's the only path, and it's not the only path. So like you
Mhm.
said, and then the people who are solopreneurs, who are self-employed, they almost feel apologetic about it because they're not like opening in this big studio, right?
Mhm.
So I remember being, a young trainer and going to these huge places. Like, so let's
Mhm.
think of like the performance center down there, and you
Mhm.
go into a place like that, and I would be like, man, this is so great. I wish I could own it. Now I go into like those places, and I just think high rent, and I'm like, how
Uh-huh.
much? So, and it's not a negative thing. It's just a funny thing how your
Uh,
perception can
mhm.
change. So I think that if you're going to do that move, one, you need to be very sure that this is the move you want to make. So you
Mhm.
shouldn't have, because there will be moments that you're gonna have to tough your way through.
Mhm.
It always will be, no matter
Mhm.
what stage you're in, right? And I think that you needed to set yourself up for success. I think that you need to learn the different pieces. So working for, I think that this was Warren Buffett that said it a couple days ago, or I saw the quote maybe a couple days ago, but he was like, go work for somebody that inspires you,
Mhm.
that you can learn from, that you want to, that can
Mhm.
mentor you.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what you really want to do because you'll develop and you'll start to find your path. I think the biggest piece of advice is to figure out who you are.
Mhm.
Because if you ask, most trainers, they want to work with anybody, you know, and people will always talk about how many certs I have. And if
Mhm.
a trainer came up to me and said, I want to have, well, they have in TRX courses, it's like, oh, I'm trying to catch up to you. And so, like, one, you'll never catch up because I'm just trying to always work, but it's not even about that. It's, I
Mhm.
would tell you not to do that
Right.
because if I had one thing to do over again, I probably wouldn't have done all of those because I
Yeah.
was really just doing them to collect paper, but
Or trying to figure it out, right? So I think I think there's a part of us where it's like we don't know. I mean, it's like when you're in high school or wherever, and people are like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Right?
Mm,
Like we don't know.
yeah,
No one really knows. I don't think,
well,
at least for me, I didn't know that I wanted to do X, Y, Z until I actually tried it, and
no,
then maybe
and
I did it and I hated it, and I was like, "Well, I never want to do that again." So I think maybe some people look at it as you know getting different certs because they want to experience whether or not either A, if
well,
they're good at it, or B,
well, the
if.
thing I'm gonna say about that is
Mhm.
this, and the reason why I said that is because the thing you should do first and I would say before you take anything,
Mhm.
figure out who you want to work with and what you want to do. If I had it to do over again, what I would tell
Mm.
you is I would have gone a path of, hey, maybe if I wanted to work with athletes, then you drive everything to that. It's a
Yeah.
very focused effort,
Mhm.
because it's kind of like if you're so scattered. Now, and this is like going back to before, where people are just so much more educated than they
Mhm.
were back in the day. Um, Everything is really niche based.
Yep.
And if you can become really good in that niche, there's some people that are magnificent in their niche. And I got some friends that I see, and I'm like, man, they're
Mhm.
great at that
Mhm.
niche, what they have. I mean, and I can name a couple, but when you look at it, it's really being focused as a young trainer and just having, if you don't have, you have precious time to learn as an entrepreneur, right?
Mhm.
And the lessons are painful.
Mhm.
The lessons are painful because you keep what you kill,
Yeah.
at the end of the day. But when you are in an atmosphere where you can, one, live, but
Mhm.
also learn, it's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
So I think that to start in like a big box or start in another
Yeah.
facility and have that freedom to really explore the path. And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's so many things now that people are doing
Mhm.
from content creation that
Yeah.
there is so many. I got great friends in the industry who are magnificent writers that make great livings,
Mhm.
at you know conferences they speak about that, or they write
Mhm.
for different
Mhm.
publications.
Mhm.
I got great friends that are bloggers. I got great friends that do awesome content on social media,
Mhm.
and this whole now with that expanding from influencership and things like that is
Mhm.
so many more opportunities. So I think that you need to explore it because that's not the only path. So
Right. And I mean, it's not even just people who want to start their own businesses, but I have friends too who will come to me and say, I want to get into the fitness industry. Because I mean,
mhm.
from the outside, it can be so glorified and look a certain
Yeah.
way. And
You wear
so,
sweatpants to work. They like that.
yeah. Uh,
Or
and
leggings nowadays
yeah,
because it's athleisure.
exactly. But my one of my things that I like to say is, it's I mean, it's obvious it's a grind and you have to be willing to hear no.
Hmm.
Your passion for it has to outweigh anything else and drive you to continue through every no that you're going to hear, because I've heard it so many times and it sucks and it hurts and it doesn't always feel great, but then you just like keep getting up and going and going and
Hmm.
going if you're passionate about it. But if you find that when you hear those no's, you become defeated and it doesn't seem exciting to you anymore, then it's
Hmm.
probably not what you want to do
Well,
ultimately.
I don't know. Yeah, it could be right. And then when I look at it, I say, uh, we're so science based, right? And
Mm,
people, we look at it, but there's an art to it. If you had five trainers and you had them put together a program for somebody, they might all follow the principles of exercise science, but give you different programming, right?
mm-hmm,
Because it's an art thing to it. And when I look at it, it's an artistic expression to how you train and your philosophy. So
mm-hmm.
we think of like just art in the most basic format. Like if I just painted a painting and you walked in like, that sucks. I'm gonna feel like, like,
Yeah,
damn, I just spent an hour doing it. You
right.
just don't like my painting,
Yeah,
so I'm gonna be sensitive about it. So
right.
I'm sensitive about my art, and I think that anybody, if you really care about it,
Mm-hmm.
um, it takes more than passion, and it's
Yeah.
not a negative thing. It's just that if you go into it, when people say, "Hey, I want to do that," I say, like, if you open a brick and mortar, it has to be because your soul won't just be right if you don't do it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the way I look at it.
That's
But if you're
good.
just looking at it as I want to be in the fitness industry, I want to control my own schedule, I want to do
Mm-hmm.
things like that, I don't think that that's the correct basis for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's so many avenues now, and it's a lot of really cool ones. Like for me, I like writing, but there's some people that are amazing writers that.
I want to talk about this.
Oh, there we go.
I do because I'm a writer,
Go
so
ahead, drop
I
it.
write for Fit.
Drop it.
I write for Fit Editorial. Well, even back when I was younger, like writing started was an outlet for me of like
Mm-hmm.
things that I was going through, and I used to write um, like letters and poems. And Edgar Allan Poe, obviously being in Baltimore, have to
Mm-hmm.
bring him up. But poetry, I would write my own and lyrics. I remember when 8 Mile came out with Eminem, and like I tried to freestyle, and I would like write my own rap
You gotta
songs,
write your
and
own raps.
yeah, it was good stuff. So it kind of fell off for a while, but then going into communications and journalism, at one point I thought that I was going to be a sideline reporter or something along those lines. I wrote for the Russell Street Report for a while, so I was covering the Ravens beat from a female's perspective back
Mm-hmm.
when it wasn't as popular now to have like women in the sports industry. Obviously, that's changed in a whole nother subject.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Women's Month, by the way.
Happy Women's Day.
Yeah, Women's Day. Well, it's Women's International Month.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
that's right.
all
You get
all
the whole month. I'm
all,
sorry.
all
I
month.
apologize.
Yes.
Don't ladies, don't be mad at me. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I apologize. Happy day. Happy month.
But I've found a way to kind of make my passions collide in terms of writing for Fit Editorial. I cover everything health and fitness related in the Baltimore market. And so for me to be able to use a different skill set and passion for writing, but it's also based on fitness. Obviously, I'm covering health and wellness. It's like two birds with one stone, right? Which is awesome. So you wrote a book, right?
I wrote
So
a book.
tell me tell me about that journey. How long did it take you? Was it
Uh,
let's dive into your book a little bit. What's it about? What's it
so,
called? Where can people
oh
find
yeah.
it? And then how
So
long
you
did it
can
take
probably
you?
find it on Amazon now or through Men's Health. So it's the Men's Health 30-minute shred. 30-minute. Yeah. 30-minute shred. So it was.
He
Yeah.
thinks.
No, I think so. It's still that. Um, so what happened is I had a presentation that was based on just the philosophy of people are more time challenged than at any point in history. People have very low attention span. So what we started doing to kind of stave off one of the biggest excuses people used to give you for not having, not wanting to work out was I don't have time.
Time. Hmm.
So it's finding short workouts, and it was one of my most popular things. So I had a great friend of mine who was an editor for Men's Health at the time, Adam Campbell, and we would talk all the time, and he's like, "Tell me about this thing you're doing because it seems really popular again." And everybody's loving it, and I see all the stuff you posting about it, and then started telling him about it. He's like, "Can you get on a call with me?" And I took him through the whole presentation, and he kind of got off the phone, and I didn't think he had really any interest in doing it. He's one of the smartest guys I know. And I respect him a lot. So I'm like, he got off the phone. I'm like, maybe he doesn't like it.
Mhm.
So what happened is he gave me a call. I think maybe it was late, either November or December of maybe 2018 or 20, I think it's 2018. And he said, "Oh, well, we want to remember that idea. We want to do it." It's like, but this is the catch. You only have 30 days to write it, and
What?
because we need to put it out for New Year's. And, plus I'm not going to be here. I'm leaving to go somewhere else. So it's going to be my last project. So I'm like, all right, okay. So, and that,
30 days?
yep, so you have about 30 days to write it.
Oh
And
my
we
gosh.
busted it out. Probably 30 days, a little bit more than that. And it
Yeah.
was a great one. So I do have a project I'm working on now that I
Okay.
can't really divulge the name or
Got
stuff
it.
like that of yet. Um, but it'll be my second work, and
Mhm.
I'm super excited about it. So as far as a writer, I wanted
Mm.
to, for me, like our previous, thing we were talking about is to be able to leave some of those, just
Mhm.
philosophies of my take. And I try
Mhm.
to tell that in my groups. You didn't get into any of my sessions, but that's
I
right. I got
stopped
it on
by.
record.
I stopped by.
So like I stopped by to take a pic. Um, but anytime you see the information that you're seeing, you're getting that presenter's take on it.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm excited about it because I get my take on the information. So if
Mhm.
anybody wants to check out the book, they can get it on Amazon. I think it had 5 stars. You can add another 5 stars.
Write a
Um,
review.
Write a review, write
Five
5 stars.
stars.
And or menshealth.com. They probably still
Okay.
have it. So
That's amazing. I didn't realize it was 30 days. Well, how long? How
30
many
minutes.
pages?
Yeah. I wouldn't know. Probably about 200 pages.
Okay.
Yeah, so and it's more of a
Wow.
guide.
Got
So
you.
it's a interesting guide, but it's a lot of workouts, and what it is try to give
Okay.
people an idea of really the philosophy, but also give
Yeah.
them a full workout calendar that they could use for a whole couple months to pretty
Yeah.
much use the philosophy and where it came from, how to use it, and how to
Mm.
use it to get in better shape.
I love it.
So,
I'm gonna hit him up when I'm ready to write my book.
uh-oh.
I'm gonna write a
Um,
book. It's on record. I will
you
one
should.
day.
Why not? But that's wouldn't.
Because you get in your own way. It's like a lot. You stare at the page, and you're like, all right, well, from what point of view do I want to write this? What is it really about? Is it weird writing about your own life's journey? How's it going to impact people?
Yeah.
There's just all these things that go through your mind when you're trying to put out something that's going to be there long
But
after you're gone.
I always think, yeah, and I always think that like with projects, right? Some of them are hard, they're hard undertakings, right?
Hmm.
But is your soul going to be right if you don't do it? And that's the toughest thing
Mm-hmm.
that's the questions that you have
Hmm.
to ask in self-reflection, right? Would your
Yeah,
soul be right if you don't write your book?
I don't think so.
So then that means today is a good day to start.
Today's a good day to start. Page one.
Page one, exactly.
All right. Well, so let's just kind of take it all the way back to the beginning. Obviously, my podcast is hopefully helping people understand and just tell these stories and getting real with people who have lived it, have
Hmm.
been in the industry. And I just want to know to kind of close out what keeps you choosing this, every day. What keeps you motivated to stay with it and to continue on this path. If there's one thing that you can say that is really just your driver of why you continue.
It, it's been like my lifelong journey, and
Mhm.
I've been in it so long, and it's not just because you've been in it so long, but it goes back to that question before. I feel like, I have something that is unique that can help, and my only mission has ever been to raise the level and quality of the industry.
Mm.
At one point, though, I feel like I've, served that goal in some way. Maybe I might at some point move off to, log cabin somewhere, but I doubt it since I'm a city boy. But you never know. Log cabin could be. Hey, Henry David Thoreau, Wright Walden, live life. Um, and that's really what the driver is. I think that it's such a young industry, but there's so much work to be done, and I think that I want to be able to put some lasting effort out there, some things that can
Mhm.
help kind of change and shape some of the younger trainers, and at the same time, you ask 9 out of 10 people why they got into this industry, they want to help people.
Mhm.
So there's hard days when you are an entrepreneur, fitness
Mhm.
entrepreneur too, but in general, right? But and the toughest day will always be filled with sometimes some one random kid who just says, "This is my favorite place to be," or it's the one place where they might be able to tell you what they can't say at home, or
Mhm.
one place that the person who's got rocky relationships can come, and now I don't have to deal with that, or I can,
Mhm.
get, you know, vent a little bit in life, or, work off the frustration, or have a safe haven. So from a standpoint of what keeps me doing it every day is just to know that, what you're providing is a much needed energy in the world, and you try to do that from a standpoint of personal is trying to, I travel and I present to, one, to give back,
Mhm.
but two, to try to raise the level and quality. So anytime you could have somebody come up and say, "Man, the way you taught that
Mhm.
changed the way that I do things." I
Yeah,
mean, it
that's
might not
big.
have a direct financial impact for you, but for
Mhm.
you, and the universe speaks in a way. So I think that that's kind of, from an authenticity standpoint and from a genuine standpoint, I think that that resonates with people, and kind of that's the effect that, I guess, if we call it popular, I'll take it, but
Mm.
makes you somebody that people look at and say, I just genuinely like to, be in that session, or hang out with
Mhm.
this guy for an hour and 50 minutes, or what
Yeah.
have you. And I think that that's what drives me, just creating some great things that can not only help the industry, but, will last long after I ain't here anymore.
Well said.
It was it?
Yeah,
I try.
well said. Well
I,
said.
I try. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. Is there anything else, any final words that you want
Wow.
to leave listeners with?
Wow. Any final
Any
words?
final, I mean, it's not final life words or anything, but
No,
we're
no.
about to end this podcast. So anything else that comes to mind that we didn't touch on? If not,
Uh, I think that exploration is good. And when you look at it, I say, for the people that are listening to the podcast, it's really about, exploring self, and trying to figure out who you are, whether you're a fitness professional or not a fitness
hmm
professional, right? So we're all on this journey that it's interconnected with either the fitness professionals and coaches, and things like that. So I look at it, and I just try to think that if we try to put good energy and different
hmm
things into the world, then that's going to be great. And the
yeah,
more of that we could provide for people, I
yeah,
think if you lead with that first, then you're going to be okay, as far as, or you can live with whatever the results are, right?
mm,
From a standpoint. So that's pretty much what I leave with everybody, is the intentions of understanding why you do what you do. So for fitness
yes,
professionals, understand who you are and where you want to be before you make the decisions of where the path you want to go on. And for um, the enthusiasts looking for the great coach, what I
mm.
mean, understand who you are and what you need, to be able to reach those goals that you're trying to reach,
yeah.
and that in combined can help you make a difference, I think.
I love it. I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful that you're here and that you
I'm
did
thankful to be
this.
here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and
Hopefully, I said some stuff worth listening to.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is so cool for me. Obviously, this is a new venture that I've started dabbling in, and it makes me happy to do. And so, putting out content and bringing people together and their stories for other people to hear that they wouldn't otherwise ever hear. I mean, there's people who don't know you who might, find something of value and they may have never heard that unless we put this content out there. And so
I love it.
that's
It's
why it
fine with me,
matters.
and
So
hopefully it's something that resonates with people. And I think you're doing a great job. This is awesome. I would
thanks,
rather be
coach.
nowhere else than doing this. So this
Oh,
was
thanks,
amazing. So
coach. You're the best.
it's
Thank
all
you
good.
so much.
Thank you for having me,
Yes.
and
All right,
hopefully
guys.
people will listen.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening.
And that does it, guys. Thank you so much for listening through to the end of that episode. I hope you'll share this with your friends, your family, and your network so we can continue growing this community even more and hear the stories that have yet to be told. Please let me know your thoughts too. Reach out, tell me what you've learned, tell me what's resonated with you, and let me know who you want to hear from next. I can't wait to talk to you guys soon.